Hope here at Crafty Hope. Welcome! I'm about to work on the week 3 Seek, Gather, Create challenge. This is a mixed media scavenger hunt challenge that takes place mostly on Instagram, but I like to record my process so I have something for you, and you can see kind of how I went about creating this if you happen to find it on Instagram. So let me tell you about this challenge. It comes from Lisa, Tina, Laura, and Melanie. This is their Instagram handles. I will leave links to those below. They're also on YouTube, and I'll try to link them up if I remember to do that. But basically, they do this challenge about twice a year and issue several prompts in which you need to seek out and gather and then create with them. So they'll issue these prompts every Sunday, and you have a week to do them. You should create with all 4 of them in any media you choose, and then post it on Instagram and use the hashtag. They also have prizes, so you'll have to go check out their posts about what the prizes are, how to participate, all of that. I'm not going to get into it because I'm afraid I would miss something, so definitely go check one or all of them out to learn more about that. So like I said, it is time for the week 3 challenge, and I have the prompts here. So we're going to use something red, a leaf, something smooth, and a repeating element. So I thought about this for a little bit. They all tend to challenge me a little, and this time around for Seek, Gather, Create, I've been wanting to do more little assemblages. Since I finished Index Card a Day, I felt like I was lacking in my actual assemblages and like shadow boxes and things that I like to create. So I thought I'll do that for this challenge. So you can see I've gathered a few somethings red. I was looking around my craft room, happened to grab some I have tons of beads. I just happened to grab these little red cubes. I don't know that I'm going to use these, but they were the first thing I grabbed, and when I turned around and looked on another shelf, I saw this roll of red baker's twine that I thought could be super neat. And then I was looking in for something else to put in this and saw this produce bag. It's like one of those netted bags. I think I bought Satsumas in it last year. So that's something red. And if I use it, I'll probably just use a piece of it or use it for like texture. So for a leaf, you can see I've got several things. My initial thought was some kind of leaf in this form, this is from some fake flowers, so it's some fake leaves, and I'll probably cut one of them off, and I'm thinking I might embroider on it. That could be like the veining or just some lines or something. I haven't quite decided, but I really kind of want to embroider on one of these. But I also realized I have some like wood leaves. These are all from the Dollar Tree in little sets. This one is big and chunky MDF piece, and then these 2 little laser cut ones were in 2 different other sets. So several leaves. Something smooth. I almost immediately was like, what can I use? What can I use? What can I use? And at first I thought smooth jazz. And I was like, I have no idea how I would put smooth jazz inside of an assemblage. So I had to start thinking a little bit more and realized I could use some buttons. Now these are all like a smooth surface, no texture on them, just smooth. And I think I want to do an image transfer. Now I know I just did last week. I'll put a link to that. Did an image transfer in the one I did last week. But you know, you can't really go wrong with an image transfer. So I'm going to probably put image transfers on a couple of these and see which ones I like the most. Now several of these, I'm trying to see, I think all 4 of these, and this one even a little bit, are concave, so they dip in the middle, and I'm not sure how well they'll take, so that's why I also grabbed these, but they're a little more convex, which means they're bowing out a little, but not much. So we're gonna see what happens. We'll see what happens. Yeah. And then a repeating element. So I don't know. I may use my Stabilo pencil and just make some marks that repeat, or I might use actual elements. And what I was thinking were, I initially thought actually these safety pins, these are rusted safety pins, and I figured I'd grab, you know, somewhere between 3 and 5 of them and just have them repeat on whatever it is I end up putting everything onto. But while I was looking for them, I also found these T-pins, which could do something similar as well. So those are my elements. I'm thinking I want to work in one of these Tim Holtz, what are they called? Vignette boxes. So I yeah, I have all 3 of these out, and we'll see. I suppose I could do like a whole assemblage of an assemblage somehow, but probably not. I think I'm just going to, yeah, stop playing with this and start working. So let me move these things around a little bit and see what we've got, and I'm gonna get to it. Since I knew I needed some drying time for the image transfer, I'm starting with that. I've got some this is a print off from the back of a book on mixed media collage. I can't tell you what book it is. I don't remember, but before I returned it to the library, I did copy a couple of the images, and they were sitting on my office desk. So I was like, you know what, let's go with that. So I especially like this image of a little girl with like a big bow and her like head in her hands. So I wanted to do that, especially on this bigger button. And all of these are shank buttons, again, because they are smooth. They don't even have the holes in it. The holes are hidden on the back. So I put my matte gel medium on the surface of my button, and I am pressing that into that concave surface. I found that the concave ones worked much better than the convex ones. So yeah, and I'm not going to make you see me do the other ones because I end up not using those, and it's the same process. So while that is sitting aside and drying, I'm going to go ahead and cut down my leaf. So I have a single leaf to work with here, and then I stepped away and found some dark green embroidery floss. I'm using all 6 strands of this, and I'm going straight up the center vein of this with some slow stitching. So, and I really like that the veins were kind of embossed on there. So going up that center portion was really easy because my needle just kind of naturally fell into the middle of it. It was really neat. But I decided instead of doing all the veining, which might be a little fiddly and hard to see for me, that I'm just going to slow stitch the whole thing. I'll go out from one side and do one whole half and then do the other whole half. So, and I'm not going to make you watch me do this. It's just some simple running stitch, and it looks like that when I get done. So what do I do next? I think I decided to go ahead and grab my something red and get this produce bag, and I'm going to cut down just a little portion. I really thought I was going to get something more from the center of it, but I knew I was going to have to cut the bag down to get to that, and so I started by cutting the top portion of this, and when I did that I realized, ooh, this is a neat little thing here. So I didn't even get the portion I thought I was going to get. More toward the center with some of the grid, I've got this like top edge. So that's cut, and my buttons have been sitting long enough, so it's time to remove the paper backing, and I'm just using a little bit of water. I'm spraying on them and rubbing my finger off. Now, once it was wet, I waited to remove some of that excess on the sides, and you can see, this was a very long process. I am going to cut out all of my spraying and drying in here, but I wanted y'all to see that I am being super gentle and just rubbing this off. Yeah, I've sped this up a lot here, but I really, I don't know, there was something about the smooth surface of this on the button that was much more pleasurable than when I do an image transfer on a piece of fabric, because on the fabric it tends to be a little more rough and it rubs on my finger and it almost hurts, whereas this smooth surface was really lovely, and the concave of that was really nice. So it was, so once I had done several rounds of this, I promise y'all, I dried it, I did it again, I dried it, I did it again. It still had a little bit of a paper on it, but I realized that when I wet it, you could see the image more, so I decided to just seal it with a little bit of shiny Mod Podge and put it aside to dry. And now I'm focusing on that red. Now the red felt way too bright to me, especially with that green leaf that I was using. So I'm going to push it back just a little bit with some white acrylic craft paint. And I'm just going over the whole thing. But once I do that, I don't like how stark white it is and stark red it is. So I'm going to, y'all, and I didn't want to dry this with the heat tool because this being a plastic bag, I knew it would probably shrivel up and do some weird things. So I'm not drying it. I did take it outside at one point and let the heat outside dry it, but at this point, no. So I've got just, what is that? That is my watercolors, and I'm getting a little brown watercolor and putting it on top of that wet white paint. And it's doing some interesting things, but mostly it's wiping off some of the white paint. And I don't know, I wasn't sure how I felt about that. So I kind of like stepped away and let it dry. And then I'm going to dab it even, which just dabs everything off. I was struggling because I didn't want it too red, but I didn't want it too white, and I didn't want it too brown. And it was a little tightrope I was walking. So I grabbed my transparent raw umber Liquitex acrylic ink, and since that is more permanent, decided to use that on this. And so I'm putting some of that to kind of give it more of that grungy aged feel that I was wanting, because that button itself is kind of an off-white color, and so I didn't want anything that was too stark white. All right, so I measured the inside of my box with a piece of copy paper and then cut down a piece of foam core to about that same size. And now I'm mixing a burnt sienna with a warm gray. I think I'm going to add some of that white paint. No, what do I add? Oh, a little bit of black paint, because I was just trying to get like a nice brown color, because I knew I was going to put some fabric on my inside my piece, and I wanted to pop it up a little. I didn't want to apply it straight to the back of that wood box, so I decided that this bit of foam core would be exactly, but I didn't want any of that white showing through the fabric, so I'm going to paint it brown. And I don't know why I was so persnickety about what color brown, because it's not going to show through like the way the white would. So this is all I'm doing, is painting this. And y'all, I was so messy with this. I end up getting a little bit on my fabric as I try to cut it down, but I end up really and I get the tiniest little bit, but I end up kind of liking it because it felt a little more grungy. At the time, I was really upset about it, but the more I look at the pictures, I'm like, I kind of don't mind that where the paint got on it. So, happy accident, I suppose. So I'm making sure I also coat all the edges as well. And I'm going to try to leave it there to dry. My fingers are covered in paint. Everything's covered in paint. And you can see this tiny bit of space I'm working on my desk. I tend to like box myself in when I'm working. I don't put supplies back. I'm trying to get better about it. Do y'all do that? Do you find yourself as you're working and having one of these like brainstorms that you're boxing yourself in a little bit more, or is it just me? All right, so here's my fabric. This is I believe it's some rust-dyed fabric. I just went to go find some, found my like box of rust and coffee dyed fabric, and this was sitting on the top, and I was like, perfect, this is what I'm gonna use. So do you see up there at the top left, that's where I got some paint on it. So I messed around with my elements for a while. I cut that out, y'all, because it was a long time of me just moving them up, moving them down. Which way do I want this? Which way do I want that? And finally decided just start pulling it together. Now I knew with the safety pins or the T-pins, whichever I used, I wanted to put them through some fabric. And so that's why I chose to add fabric to this, is because I wanted the safety pins to go through it. So I'm going to just use 3 of them, and you can see I'm putting them in that top left corner, and that I think kind of helps with where I got that paint on there, but it also accents it at the same time. So I'm trying to space these out evenly. That did not work out, that last one, so I'm going to take it off and do it again. I'm working very, very, very carefully. These are rusted. I do not want to poke myself with these and have to go get a tetanus shot. I probably should just go get one, as much as I love to work with rust. But working very carefully so I don't poke myself with a rusty pen. Now I had this little piece of paper that had the page number from that photocopy I had that I had darkened up, and thought, oh, that would be fun to work in there. Not darkened up. I put some distress ink on it, but I kept trying to work it in there, and I could not get it
quite to go in there. So everything's still a little bit wet, a little bit weird, but I'm like, let's roll with it. So to glue down my little bit of produce bag, I've got my gunkier, my older matte medium, so it's much thick, needs to be probably go away, because when it dries it still has a little bit of that white showing through. Matte medium usually dries really clear, but this is so thick that it's not great. So y'all use the good stuff. So I'm going to use the same thing on the back of my leaf as well, and I'm gluing it there. And then for my button, I kind of just wanted to sew it on. I thought about gluing it, but gluing it with, like, because it is heavy, seemed, I don't know, like E6000 wouldn't be quite right or anything. So I went and grabbed some more of that green thread or embroidery floss I had used, and I am just going to sew on this button. And as I played with all the little things, moving everything around, I kind of realized I wanted to bring that red in again somewhere, somehow. So I did pull those beads back out that I had and decided that I was going to also sew them on to help frame up the button a little bit, give it a tad more texture. Now this has tons of texture, tons and tons. Everything on here has texture, but it's, yeah, I wanted to, I don't know, it felt like this button needed to be framed up. So I will add on 5 little beads on here around the button to kind of to frame it up. But yeah, everything on here is a repeating element. The slow stitching on the leaf, that repeats. The little lines coming out from the side of the produce bag, that's a repeating element. My actual repeating element. And then I've added these beads, and they are a repeating element. So I kind of went a little crazy with the repeating elements. I don't know. My big concern with using the green leaf and the red was that it would feel very Christmassy. So that's where I was trying to steer kind of away from that, to not, I don't know, there's something about red and green that always feels Christmassy to me. So that was, I don't think this does, but yeah. Now, I wish I had, I don't know, I struggled a bit with trying to keep the button, the beads wanted to keep going under the button, and so I kept trying to decide if I wanted to glue that down, but it felt like it would pop up a little bit on the other side too much if I did that. So I decided, no, as long as nobody messes with it inside the Shadowbox, it's not really going to matter if it's glued down. I thought I was going to do beads all the way around this, but as I got closer to that outer edge, I realized that those beads might end up hitting the side of the box, and that just, I don't know, I didn't like the idea of that. So I decided to just do this one more, and then I don't think I even like tied this thread off. I think I just, no, I think I did. I'm trying to remember. I was thinking I was just going to run it underneath the fabric there. And see, there's me looking at it, trying to decide, is this done? Do I need to add more? I don't know. So I'm going to run that under there. And I think here I do tie it off. I was having a hard time because that needle is super sharp, and so it was like snagging on everything. All right, so that is tied off, and now I'm going to grab my E6000 and start to glue everything in. Now, what I wanted to do, and what in my head I said I was going to do, was glue in my foam core first. So I've got my, y'all, it was gunky as all get out, and I couldn't get the top off. So here's me getting my big Mama Gemma pliers to glue it. And so I'm like, okay. And so by this point I was frustrated. I was like, just get the glue down. And y'all, you see, wait, what happened there? Wow, I don't know what happened there. I'm trying to get the glue down. I'm all frustrated. And I put it right on the foam core, on the front of it. And I was like, no, you're supposed to put it on the back and glue it in first. So I get my head in the right place. I get the glue on the back of this foam core. And I am going to glue it straight into that little vignette box. My glue was like oozing out at this point, so I was trying to keep it from coming out until I could get the box in so I could add the glue to the top of the foam core here. And I really here could have used Fabri-Tac or something else, but because the E6000 was doing that oozing thing, I was like, just go ahead and put the E6000 in there. And then I'm going to just put my fabric here on top and push it down in all the right places, and it's done. It's a cute little assemblage. It didn't make any sense. It didn't, I didn't even add a sentiment. I kept thinking about it, but I was like, I really just like this the way it is. So I hope you like it too. If you do, give me a thumbs up. Let me know if you have any questions. Make sure to check out the 4 hostesses and play along with this fun challenge. I do love a Seek, Gather, Create. All right, guys, I will see y'all later. Thanks so much for spending this time with me. Go get inspired. Bye.